You can watch Arsenal versus Burnley and Man City versus Crystal Palace on Now TV for just €10. So what's stopping you? Putting up more Christmas decorations? Your house already looks like Santa's grotto. A family party? Your Aunt Mary has seen you 4 times this week already. Don't let anything get in your way. To treat yourself to a Now TV Sky Sports Day Pass and watch the games that matter to you for just €10, search Now TV Football today. Content streamed by internet. Full terms at nowtv.com.
Hey, this is James Arnold Taylor, voice actor, the voice of
Yabba Dabba Doo, Fred Flintstone,
Johnny Test, who's 11 years old and totally awesome,
Ratchet from Ratchet and Clank, Tidus from Final Fantasy X, oh yes, and of course, Obi-Wan Kenobi. It wouldn't be Coffee with Kenobi without yours truly. The Force is strong here indeed. Previously on Coffee with Kenobi.
You got me all flustered just thinking about it. But the launch and just that desperation in his words, and you're right. Just the sheer power of Vader is just incredible.
Well, and that's what we like to call is a pants wetting situation.
Yeah. Spill your Coke all over you, choke on your popcorn moment. Yeah.
That's right.
This is James Arnold Taylor, and you're listening to Coffee with Kenobi. I have a good feeling about this.
And that would be in the context of referring to the end of Rogue One and that incredible dynamic Darth Vader scene that we know so very well. Hello, everybody, and welcome to show number 154 of Coffee with Kenobi. We are your spoiler-free place for Star Wars discussion, analysis, rhetoric, and the best travel tips this side of the galaxy. I'm your host, Dan Z, drinking One Nation coffee out of that same red Star Wars Christmas sweater mug from Target I got a few years ago. I have watched it since show number 153, so it is clean. But man, I just can't resist that one, and I still haven't found a great Star Wars Christmas mug to enjoy besides that awesome red Darth Vader Christmas sweater one. So if you see one, let me know, and I will be sure to purchase it because I absolutely love Star Wars and Christmas. It is a great combination. Coffee with Kenobi is brought to you by MEI and Mouse Fan Travel. For all of your travel needs to go to the Disney theme parks and the cruise lines, as well as anywhere you want to go on vacation, be sure to go to www.mousefantravel.com, the official travel agency of Coffee with Kenobi. And I'm sure you saw that my wife, Deanna Z, was in New York last weekend, courtesy of MEI and Mouse Fan Travel, and she certainly showcased on our Instagram stories how awesome MEI is and how wonderful they are at getting you where you need to go and having so much fun. Much more on that later on this show and on show number 155. On CWK, I invite you to join me as we think about the mythology of Star Wars in a whole new way and maybe laugh a little bit in the process. You are here with your Star Wars family as we go to our favorite coffee shop and talk some Star Wars. On today's show, Lindsey Romain and Din join us as we continue looking at the Star Wars films in chronological release order. Today, it is the top 5 things we love about The Last Jedi. So pull up a chair, grab your favorite coffee mug, and let's have some coffee with Kenobi. Before we kick off our conversation about The Last Jedi, and it is an incredibly fun, enriching conversation. I certainly learned a lot about the film from my 2 guest hosts. There's no doubt about that. I want to give a special shout out to the brand new Star Wars book, the YT 1300 Millennium Falcon Owner's Workshop Manual. These are the ones that have been published. They cover a lot of the different Star Wars books. Inside Editions publishes them, and I want to thank them for sending me a copy. But essentially, this is like, imagine if the Falcon were real, and you had an owner's manual that came with the actual Corellian freighter. I should say. I don't know why I said freighter. And it's incredible. It goes into the history of the Falcon, gives you all kinds of technical specifications, shows you the evolution of what they might look like off the assembly line, through Lando owning it all the way to Han Solo. And it's absolutely gorgeous. It's laid out beautifully. Written by longtime Star Wars author Ryder Wyndham, illustrations by Chris Trevis and Chris Reif. It goes into the history of the Falcon, like I said. And it's just a spectacular book. It's a blue hardcover. Looks really, really nice on my Star Wars bookshelf, which by now is becoming a library. No Steve Sansweet library, but there are certainly a lot of great Star Wars books. This is a great addition to add to that. It also gives you some background on the reason why Lando made the Falcon more attractive, which I think is really, really cool. Shows specifics about the Kessel Run damage and what that did. And there are a number of different sections included in the book, including piloting the ship, propulsion, weapons and defense, sensors, crew, facilities, engineering systems, and all kinds of really cool stuff. And as Lisa points out on Coffee with Kenobi's webpage, because she does a great review of the book as well that you should be sure to check out, it shows you where the refresher or bathroom is, which is pretty funny. And the Falcon has always been a mystery to me because of the way that it's laid out in the films. And obviously, it didn't always kind of jive with what seemed to make sense with your eye when you're watching it. So they've recently gone back and kind of fixed this with the last 4 or 5 years of films and made it make more sense. And this lays it out beautifully. It is a must-have, so be sure to go to our show notes to find a link to purchase this. And this is a link that is an affiliate link, so when you purchase this book from our Coffee with Kenobi website, you help out this show as well.
So who talks first? You talk first? I talk first.
Joining us today for a cup of coffee is a staff writer for Nerdist and returning guest, Lindsey Romain.
Hello.
Hello there. And I got your last name correct, didn't I?
Yes.
Okay, good. I thought I did. I thought that's what...
Like the lettuce.
Yes, I believe it. Exactly. Your Twitter handle kind of gives that away.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, it's great to have you back on this show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such a joy to be back.
My pleasure. Also joining us is another returning guest at Coffee with Kenobi, Din from F105.
Hey, Dan. Hey, Lindsey.
Hello.
Good to have you on. I know both of you, I believe, I shouldn't say no, but I feel confident that you both are going to be at Celebration Chicago, correct?
Yes. It'll be my first celebration.
Your first celebration?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. How cool. And then in your former home turf, too.
Yeah, my hometown. Yeah, so I'm really excited. That was when I saw it was going to be there. I was like, well, I can't miss it this year. I have no excuse.
No, it's going to be awesome. I'm really looking forward to it.
And then you'll be
especially since it's just a car drive away. Yeah, there you go. So we talked a little bit before the show started, and I wanted the both of you to come on for the top 5 things we love about The Last Jedi. For my money, I think this film is brilliant, and I think it quite possibly could be the smartest Star Wars film ever made. I guess The Empire Strikes Back certainly, from a symbolic point of view alone, would certainly hold a card there as well. But this is a great film. I'm very excited to talk about this with the both of you. Lindsey, why don't you go ahead and kick it off for us? What's the first one you have on your list?
Yeah, the first one on my list is actually something that going into this film was something I really was hopeful would happen. I wasn't positive that it would, but it was the reunion scene between Luke and Leia. It's kind of based, obviously I wanted there to be some kind of reunion between some of the original cast, but for me it was mostly based in the fact that I really love the Luke and Leia theme by John Williams. That was a big kind of reason why I wanted to see them together, as like apart from just the emotional satisfaction of that. So when you sort of realize that it's happening, even though it's kind of hologram Luke, I got so excited, especially as that music kicked in.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's just a beautiful moment for me. And I think kind of perfectly, it fits in perfectly. It's not too much, it's just a nice scene between the two of them.
And if memory serves, I believe, because I know I was at the press screening for this in Chicago. I think you were too, right?
Yes.
So we both experienced that at the same time, even though we didn't know each other then.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, that's a great way to kick it off. Din, what's the first one you have on your list?
Coming off of The Force Awakens and Rogue One, which I completely adore, when I came out of The Last Jedi the first time and talked to a friend, the thing that I said was that movie was mythology, not Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
And if Star Wars is going to survive and be relevant, and if it's going to work actually in people's lives, it needs to be myth. And it just so happens, and I think that's exemplified in a lot of things in the movie, but I'll pick the aging Luke here as my number one of why he's more myth than Luke. And I just happened to be reading Joseph Campbell's The Hero with 1,000 Faces at the time. And going through that book, I was pulling out things, almost every page. I see something that was like, wow, Rian Johnson really studied this book to write this script. And Young focused on the hero's journey of youth into adulthood. And Campbell in Hero talks about how, no, that was Freud. And Campbell talks about how Young focused on the journey from old age to death. And being a middle-aged person who has experienced some brokenness, like real, Hemingway says, we're all broken. That's how the light gets in. And I really feel that's where I'm at in my life now. I'm at a place of light. I've gone through, not totally like Luke, but I've gone through some brokenness. And the Luke that I wanted was not the Luke that I got. And then I realized, wow, this Luke is mythology. It's giving me something I need as a myth to now show me how to go from middle age to the next half of my life and beyond.
Well, what a lovely way to explain that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Really.
And he becomes, through that, perfectly Star Wars in the sense that he really evokes both Eastern and Western myth at the same time. Like he's Buddha on the immovable spot, it was called, before the god of love and death, as Campbell says, appeared on an elephant. And the god assailed Buddha, seeking to break his concentration, and assailed him with unlimited arrows. And then all Buddha did was move his hand to touch the ground. And that's exactly Luke as he's being assailed by the AT-ATs.
Oh, wow.
And Kylo Ren on the AT-ATs, like the elephant, assailing him with the laser. And all he does is touch his shoulder. And then the tree is the Jedi tree. The tree is the cross, and he sacrifices himself too, so he becomes sort of like I'm not trying to get religious or anything on anyone, but
no, it's
he's
okay.
like Buddha on the immovable spot, but then he's also sacrificing himself by the tree, and on a rock, and on the rock I build this church. It's so Eastern and Western myth. It's just perfect myth.
So I guess the show's pretty much done. You've pretty much nailed everything. That's pretty good.
Okay, that's all right. So I'll take a bases loaded home run right off the street.
That was a bases load. That was genius. That I would love to have you tell it to my mythology students.
Oh, okay.
Honestly, that was incredible. Really well done.
That's part of what makes this movie so incredible to me too. Is I've heard so many different. Like I've never heard that exact thing about it before. And it's just, there's so much rewarding stuff in there to revisit.
It really is rich. It's like a fine piece of literature that is just chock full of rhetoric and things that you can kind of sink your teeth into. And there's just a lot there, which leads me to my first one. And I just basically feel that it's the unexpected heavy tone of this film. The Force Awakens, I think, certainly had some very heavy, poignant moments, but this one, from the beginning, even though there are some lighthearted moments right away, it's because they have to ease you in, because this is very, very heavy stuff. I mean, you're talking about the end of a modern mythological icon. You're talking about the potential end of another in the form of General Leia Organa, and then you're still dealing with the loss of Han Solo. The eradication of the only hope in the galaxy, and what it means to feel oppressed and to feel like there's just nothing you can hold on to, and there's so few people that you believe have the same outlook or belief system that you do. And that's scary. That's frightening. And I think the fact that it tackles it this way is pure cinematic genius. I remember leaving the theater for the first time thinking, okay, they have taken Star Wars and they've, in a way, rebooted it. And I mean that in the most loving sense possible, because they've re-envisioned this franchise and given it a sheen that I didn't know that I needed or that I wanted, but now I just can't possibly look back. It's because of the heavy mythological approach they have taken to construct this film. And I give all the credit in the world to Rian Johnson for having the bravery and the insight and the wisdom to do that, and for Lucasfilm and Kathleen Kennedy to say, you need to run with this. We trust in your vision. And thank goodness that they did.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Lindsey,
the
we're back.
This is what the sequel trilogy really needed, that to mean something, to do something,
to bring it into a new generation. Yeah, we needed to get away from Adam Sandler type stuff. So, Lindsey, what is your second one?
Yeah, my second one is something that's also kind of broad, but I'm a woman watching these movies, and for me, as much as I love all the films, and I don't necessarily come into them with expectations of what they need to represent, something that I walked away with the first time I saw this was this feeling of representation in terms of female relationships. I think it's really, for me, at least the first Star Wars movie that felt like there was female camaraderie in any way. And that's most evidenced, I think, between Leia and Holdo, this kind of friendship that exists between them and this trustingness that we don't even really see until right before Holdo sacrifices herself. But it was just such a powerful thing for me to see these two older women have just this moment of friendship. And, we see a lot of friendships in different forms. It's kind of sad that it took this long into the franchise for me to feel this real female connection. And then there's also a really beautiful connection between Rey and Leia at the end, between the Tico sisters. It's just kind of something that bleeds throughout this movie in a way that never has before and makes it extra meaningful for me.
Wow, you are so right about that. In the scene with Holdo and Leia that you're talking about, there's also tenderness there without weakness.
Yes.
It's very strong, very, very, very endearing and powerful and really refreshing. But I'm really glad that you said that.
And you don't see, they don't tell you too much about what their relationship actually is. It's so, you just feel it, from the way that they talk to each other, from the way, they say, may the force be with you always. It's very emotional for me. And it doesn't take much to evoke those kind of feelings between them.
And contextually, because in the great tradition of George Lucas's storytelling, they give you just enough to feel like there's a lot here that I don't know about.
Yeah.
And I want to know more about it. But they make you feel like you're a part of something bigger, something important, something special.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Din, what do you have for your second one?
I have the Force as my second one because I just feel like you can. As I was reading, this one ties into Hero with 1,000 Faces again. You could tell that Rian Johnson was really studying it and possibly studying that rumored 1 hour talk George Lucas did on the Force to Lucasfilm, but we saw 20 minutes of it on the Saga Blu-ray. But in Hero, Joseph Campbell always repeats this one phrase. It's like he's repeating it because he knows people will miss it, and it's the most important point. He's always saying the hero shows that the two worlds are one, that everything is one. The real great deed is the local hero comes back to show the community is one, or the worldly hero, like the Buddha or whatever, comes back to show that the world is one. And he always repeats that this oneness thing. And then when you get to the scene where Luke is teaching Rey about the Force, and he's really going on about that clearly, that the whole point is that the Force exists in everything. I mean, we've heard it before, all through Rebels, all through Clone Wars, starting in Empire, actually starting in A New Hope that binds the galaxy together. But Brian added more detail to that and more, I guess, gravitas, where Luke is really stressing, no, like, you really have to get this. The Force is in everything. And the Jedi don't own it. And what does he say? He's so much gravitas. To think the Force belongs to the Jedi is arrogance. Can you feel that?
Yeah.
To me, it's like he's telling, Ryan is almost like preaching to the room. Like, can you just feel that?
Yeah.
Don't be arrogant. And then I was reading Hero with 1,000 Faces, and I come across this passage. All is everywhere, and anywhere becomes the seat of power. Rey is seated on the rock. Any blade of grass may assume in myth the figure of the savior and conduct the questing wanderer into the sanctum sanctorum of his or her own heart. It's like Rian Johnson took that passage of even a blade of grass is the force.
Yeah.
Because, and it's like, why did each, when I watched the movie, it's like, why a blade of grass? And then I come across this quote in Hero. And, the force and how Rian Johnson gave it more depth.
Yeah, so based on what the two of you just said, I added 4 more things to my honorable mentions. I really did.
Yeah, I was going to say this is the first movie, speaking of the Force, where the Force feels like tactile in a way. There's that scene where he's showing her the things and you actually see the flowers growing, the waves crashing. It's like the first movie that gives you a real visual representation of what the Force is, and it's so powerful.
Oh my God, you just put it, I just realized that is so true. It's like saying, you know what? It's not a mystery.
Yeah.
It's this
right
simple. Yeah.
And by the way, that completely continues to reinforce midichlorians too.
Yeah, it does.
It absolutely does. It's an energy field created by all living things. And it's all right there. Right. My second one is failure. Again, as a parent, as a teacher, when Yoda comes out, which is a great, wonderful surprise moment, the first time you see it anyway, and when he talks about failure being the greatest teacher, I can honestly tell you, since I've seen this movie, I think about that every single day. When I'm talking to my students, when I'm talking to my peers, when I'm talking to my children, or when I look at my daily walk and the things that I do in my life, when we learn to embrace those mistakes, those failures, and to grow and learn from them, and to get over our own hubris, the metacognitive approach that Luke is giving or thinks he's giving to Rey is actually more a commentary on himself and his inability to embrace his failure. And, instead of, it's one thing to feel sorry for yourself. It's another thing to say, you know what, I messed up. I can do better. I have to try again. I just think that's so important and so severely lacking. I'm going to get all didactic here, but it just really is kind of lacking in sort of how a lot of us approach life. And I think if you can really embrace mistakes, learn from them, and become stronger, like Luke does at the end, like Rey continues to do every moment that she embraces the Force and gets to know more of herself, I think you're really onto something special.
Yeah, that's actually, this is one on my list as well, but I'll elaborate because I have slightly more to add on it later. But that is my favorite line in all of Star Wars. The greatest teacher failure is. It's just so...
That's awesome.
It means so much, and it's so simple, but it's so true and so large in that one little phrase that...
So daunting.
And I also come back to it constantly because it's so true. When you think about things that you learn from in your life, it's not the things that go well. It's the things that you messed up on that teach you how to be an adult or be whatever, enter these next stages of your life. It's such a Yoda line that Rian Johnson just nailed perfectly.
Yes. I got chills when you were talking about that, Dan, because... And you too, Lindsay, it continued, because I think that's what I was trying to say. This movie is more than Star Wars. It's myth. It's helpful.
Yeah.
It's helping us deal with life.
Yeah.
Mythology at its core, what it does is it teaches us about the culture and the time period in which the story is told, and it shows the best and worst that we have to offer as people. And I think The Last Jedi does that beautifully. Wow. If this is just our first two, buckle up, everybody, because this is going to be... fantastic show. Let's go ahead and take our first break. And when we come back, we will get to our next 2 things we love about The Last Jedi. This is Coffee with Kenobi.
This is Coffee with Kenobi. Oh, pass the cream, would you?
It's the most wonderful time of the year for Coffee with Kenobi because of Christmas and because of our CWK Patreon contributors, like Rebecca Raven, Dennis Keithley, Terry Lee, Melinda Wolf, Wayne Booker, Aaron Harris, Chris Kavarka, Angela Sauce, Mediocre Jedi, Caroline Maselli, Tim Bungaroth, Chris Metz, LJ Souter, Thea Selby, Jeff Ellis, Daz Davies, Christian Dale, Jason Hall, Brian McKinney, Connie Shee, Mike Audette, Jared Cantor, BJ Smith, Eric Struthers, Nick Dico, and Mark Suter. People still ask me, how does Patreon help you? Well, you make a donation once a month, and that goes to supporting the show. The financial costs of the show, especially as it continues to grow, involving travel, equipment, even paying for the internet and the speeds I need sometimes to make the show sound professional. It eventually, it adds up. And your contributions make a huge difference and impact on the show. I cannot thank you enough. And one of the benefits that you get besides supporting the show and that good warm feeling in your heart for supporting Dan Z and Coffee with Kenobi and our contributors is that you get access to CWK Pour Over, which is our exclusive podcast that comes out every Sunday, and that is only $5 a month for that. We have over 35 shows that are on there right now. You just go to the search on the Patreon posts and you type in CWK Pour Over and you'll see access to all of them. They're all very clearly labeled about the different topics, which are sometimes Star Wars, sometimes they're about Spider-Man or popular movies or different things that are happening in our lives. You just never know. So here's a clip from the upcoming show that comes out this weekend, and it is about our hype and excitement from Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse and our feelings on this film and what we can expect from this movie. It also features how we transition to other topics as well. I very much want you to get a vibe for what this podcast is like. It's great fun to listen to. It's great fun to plan. It's great fun to produce. And it's great fun to hear your feedback. So here is a clip from this week's show.
Wow.
Oh, Lord and Miller were on the screenplay.
I'm surprised sometimes when people say it's the best Spider movie ever. Because to me, it's not animated doesn't really sit in that genre for me than live action does. That makes sense. Like you can argue, yeah, Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, or you've got I'm drawing a blank on the other Spider-Man. Andrew Garfield was the second Spider-Man.
I thought he was a good Spider-Man. I liked him.
Well, I'm just saying, like somebody says, this is the best Spider-Man movie. Does that fall underneath the digital category or the cartoon category?
I know,
or you know what I'm saying? Like, I can get behind it if it's like fun, but I don't think it's necessarily the same realm for me. But I don't know. Teach their own, I guess.
Exactly. Well, let's transition real quick because this is the holiday season. Very much looking forward to revisiting this topic in the very near future. But I brought up a debate on Twitter a few weeks ago just because I kind of wanted to stir the pot. It was Friday, and I was thinking I thought it might have been kind of fun. Because I always have said it, I think disagreeing is important. I think being disagreeable is awful. Being a disagreeable person is no fun. And that's just to cause conflict. But to disagree and to have an intelligent discourse like Corey and I had about Kylo at the end of Coffee with Kenobi, or Pour Over Show 32, that's great. That's great fun. So it was focused on, is Die Hard a Christmas movie or not? Perfect example right there. We were transitioning right into the debate I've been having on Twitter and on Facebook about whether Die Hard is a Christmas movie or not. Here's Saul weigh in on that, as well as many other geeky topics that are tremendous fun, and I think you'll have a blast listening to them too. So if you'd like to have access to CWK Pour Over or help support Coffee with Kenobi on our Patreon page, go to www.patreon.com/coffeewithkenobi for more information and to sign up. Or you can check out the red button at the very top of our webpage, www.coffeewithkenobi.com. One Nation Coffee is the official brew of Coffee with Kenobi. You can go on to onenationcoffee.com and sign up for a coffee subscription so you never miss out on the best coffee in the galaxy. I just had some this morning, and I love it. It's a crucial part of every morning for me. So go on and go there, click on the subscription, sign up, or if you just want to try a bag, I don't think you'll regret it, you can put in the code Kenobi10 to get 10% off your first order. We're back, and it is back to Lindsay. Lindsay, your third one is up on the top 5 things you love about The Last Jedi.
Yeah, so it's funny, you were just saying that we kind of did some heavy stuff. I kind of have a sillier one for my next awesome. Choice on here. And it's actually just it's a music cue, actually, that makes me excited every single time I rewatch this movie, which is the TIE fighter attack music during the Battle of Crate when Rey re-enters the scene on the Millennium Falcon. and it plays that, the kind of recalling A New Hope. And every time I see that, it's the most exciting feeling for me, where it's just this, it kind of connects the new movies to the old one in a way. It's a nostalgic thing that doesn't feel cheap or just like tossed in there.
Yeah, it's not pandering. It's just exciting.
No. And it's kind of like, you wouldn't even really notice it unless you're like a big nerd. So, or a big music nerd specifically. I look for the music a lot. It's one of my favorite things about Star Wars. And it plays into that myth thing where it's kind of, it just is a big part of why I love this story, these stories. And it's a little thing that's thrown in there for fans, and it makes me excited every time. It's so fun.
I was smiling when you were describing that, because I remember that moment, when you see that moment in the theater or when you're watching at home. Yeah. That's just great, because you get that, oh yeah, here we go. Because that means something to us. Yeah.
It's kind of it recalls something that a different memory maybe that ties it all back in.
Well said. Din, we're back to you. Your third one.
My third one is Rose.
No.
Just adore Rose. But I had a feeling this would come up maybe in more than just my list. So I just was going to say one thing about Rose that I think I could add that I haven't really heard anywhere, which is, to me, she is like Sam Gamgee from Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
The regular, non-heroic, non-heroic in stereotypical ways, Mm-hmm. Like Sam, he doesn't look heroic, but by the time you get to the end of that trilogy, you realize he's the real hero. He kept hope alive. He carried Frodo. He never stopped believing that they could accomplish what they were trying to do. And he also kept Frodo in line with why they were doing what they were doing, which was that there was goodness in the world, which is like Rose saying that we're fighting for the ones we love. That's goodness. And so she's kind of like the hero of our souls or something.
The heartfelt hero, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but like our souls as to why. Mm-hmm. You can get lost in, I think, how Cassian Andor sort of represented that in Rogue One, that you can get lost in the fight and you can lose why. And I guess. And then, Crate, when she saves Finn and says that, it's like a little mini soliloquy or something, but Crate is also designed a lot and shot like Helm's Deep in Two Towers. It curves the same way and the angles are kind of similar. Yeah. So
that's awesome.
And also my friend, just one more thing, my nonviolence activist mentor from way back, he's the real deal. He was abducted for 118 days in Iraq, one of the first people to report on Abu Ghraib and help people. He was helping, before it became big news, like he was helping, oops, I just got political. I don't mean to. He was helping people talk to their family in jail, like intermediating. And then he was abducted. And he's one of the smartest people I know. I don't know why but I always said to him, Jim, you're my hero as an activist because he's also my friend, and the guy's always doing good things for people. And I'm like, it's because you're just always treating people good. You really care about people. And when I always sit him down he's my neighbor, to watch Star Wars movies, and he's always, he just really doesn't like them. And it's sad. I keep trying to get him to like a movie. He's like, oh, we'll watch Jedi, and I'll think it was great. And he'll be like, Dean, that was really bad. But after The Last Jedi, he was like, that was good. That was good. And he really went on about Luke and Rose, how much he adored Rose.
Well, and that line from Rose really encapsulates, it sounds like, I certainly don't want to trivialize the importance of this man's real life and real journey compared to a fictional character, but it's certainly the same idea, isn't it? It debunks the myth of redemptive violence.
Yeah.
Right. And he had a lot to say about Luke on Crate, but I don't know if that's not in my points. But
cool.
Luke really does. Well, he did. Okay. I trained with him, and he taught you only can become nonviolent if you directly face the real violence within you, and everyone has it.
Wow.
And you're lying if you don't. You're lying if things didn't make you so angry that it's. And on some level, and that he also said it's a lifelong thing. So you, especially someone who's involved in war like Luke, you wouldn't just face that once in Return of the Jedi. You would be facing your violence your entire life and things that scare you or make you angry. Like when he saw what Kylo might become and what he was doing, it was, so awful that would bring that out in Luke. Yeah.
Wow. You continue to make it hard for me to follow you. Lindsay, do you want to go next?
I'm just doing it for your show. I just want to be a good guest.
You guys are both wonderful. I knew that I picked two awesome people for this movie, and you guys have been amazing. So thank you so much. My third one is the duel in Snoke's throne room. I mean, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
That thing is electric. And one of the reasons I know for one thing, when I saw it, when we realize that Kylo has killed Snoke and the lightsaber goes perfectly to Rey, and then they go back to back, and all of a sudden the choreography is just out of this world electric. People cheered and screamed.
Yes.
And then the next night, yeah, you remember. And then the next night, I hosted a thing at a museum where we watched the film. We had a dinner, and then my wife went to that with me. It was really fun. It was a great night. And my wife is not the biggest Star Wars fan, and in fact, she's probably one of the smallest Star Wars fans, or she just doesn't care about it. but she's very awesome and very supportive of me, which is great. And when that scene happened, she looked at me. She was, "That is awesome," and she was really excited. And I thought, "Oh my gosh, this is bringing in everybody," and it's just it's amazing choreography, and it's much more vicious and visceral than a lot of the lightsaber duels because. The impaling, of course, doesn't hurt. It does hurt, but I'm not the one who got impaled. But I mean, it adds to the power of the brutality of this fight and the raw anger of Kylo Ren in the power of Rey. It's a perfect contradiction because they both are very powerful with the Force, and Rey has that anger, but she doesn't use it, and she's able to diffuse it into survival, into being a Jedi, whereas Kylo is just letting it all hang out. And the psychology that is at play between the two of them that leads up to that moment, but it really comes to light there. I just think it's a gorgeous scene. And speaking of gorgeous scenes, from a film perspective, from a camera perspective, and the lighting, it's an absolute work of art.
Yeah. I think, not to be reductive to anything that's come before or will come after in Star Wars, but to me, that is like, I can't imagine any moment topping the feeling of seeing that for the first time. And obviously I'm younger. I didn't experience these movies in their first go around, but it was just, I still watch that scene and I just think there's nothing better than this in Star Wars. It's just beautiful. No,
I totally agree that it'd be hard to top the cinematic narrative power and the visual glory of that scene. Yeah.
And all that's happening at that same time, because it's also when Holdo's, her scene's going on. It's just this beautiful culmination.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. This film probably has 2 or 3 climactic moments, and this is one of them. If you would have ended it there, you would have left the theater just thrilled. But there's so much more to come. So let's go back, Lindsay, to you for your fourth one.
Yeah. So my fourth one is actually, I wrote Rey's cave sequence, her whole sequence where she kind of has to have this interior moment when she hops into the cave. And that, for me, to go back to kind of the femaleness of this movie, is one of the most intimate kind of scenes that I've ever seen a woman have in a Star Wars movie. And every time I watch it, I feel something different. I feel like it's saying something different. And it's kind of like it reminds me, it evokes a little bit the kind of scene that she has in Maz's castle in The Force Awakens, where it's her having this Force vision that is singular to her. But this one to me is so much more interesting. It's very strange when she kind of sees this reflection of herself when she does the finger snap and everything. I don't always know what it means. I think it's really just someone having to peer very deeply into their soul and to kind of come to terms with the fact that maybe this mythology they've created for themselves isn't real. And I think that's something that's hard. It's one of the hard lessons of this movie that she has to learn, which is that maybe she's not special. Maybe she's special, obviously, but maybe she's not this like kind of cosmically important person that her parentage allowed her to think she was. So it's a beautiful moment of reflection for me. And I think I love Rey so much. And I think it's my favorite moment with her.
Which is hard to narrow down because there are a ton of great ones with her.
Yeah, this one just feels very like intimate to me. Very I don't think I've ever seen a moment like that with a woman in a hero's journey, kind of having that thing that is hard to know what it means, and it's kind of indescribable. But
I'm incredibly proud that I get to live in a world where, as my son is watching these movies, this is the new normal. Like Rey is the standard for him. And I love that. I can't even tell you how proud that and how happy that makes me.
Yeah.
It's because of things like that.
It's something you take for granted too. You know, you've seen so many movies where there's like the Frodo having this moment or the Harry Potter having this moment.
Right.
And now it's the Rey having this moment. It's more powerful than I think people even realize.
Oh, I agree. I totally agree.
It is. And I love how it's so Lucasian in the fact that it's using symbols, so exacting and intentional, but you really have to see the movie a few times and think about it a lot before you come to the conclusion that you just came to, which I think is the right one, that it's all about sort of ego and her concept of herself. And it's in the reflection, you know, the ego is I'm like, why was her body being repeated? It's like, oh yeah, because all she could see is her concept of herself. And then she looks in the mirror, but it took me a long time to come to that.
Yeah, no, same. Yeah, it's definitely one of those like kind of surreal moments in a movie that you have to live with for a while before you can kind of suss it all out.
There's a really, I think, good article on IGN that talks about that. That you should check out, and it's a shameless plug because I wrote it.
Okay. Please send the link.
Yes. I will. Dan, what's your next one?
Well, my next one was the same as you, Throne Room. Again, I had a feeling this was going to come up because it's one of the greatest things in cinema history, not just Star Wars. But as Lindsey, I'm a musician, and I guess most people like Dan have me on because they know me through the Star Wars-y kind of music that I do. But I also I love visual art, and I went to art college, and so this scene visually is like Dan was saying, is absolutely enthralling on a visual level, and because it's designed after Ralph McQuarrie's throne room painting, sort of from Return of the Jedi, but they never got to do the lava throne room of the Emperor, so it's that finally. But then Rian Johnson, this is another way I feel like he's really like Lucas, which was to take all these influences of mythology or whatever, even art, and put them together in a hodgepodge and have something new come out. So this scene, it doesn't look like anything in any movie or Star Wars, does it? You know, like when you watch Rogue One or Solo, you're seeing a lot that kind of reminds you of other Star Wars movies or even Force Awakens. But this is the one scene in all the new movies that's new. We have not seen that. And then so I went researching, and apparently the light, how it's a light room, is Rian Johnson based it on an American conceptual artist who makes light rooms named James Turrell. And he had a really interesting past. He was a draft dodger for Vietnam War, and but he was active in like flying people out of the war zone. He went to jail for a year for refusing to go to war. But so it was just brilliant that Ryan, took Ralph McQuarrie and mixed him with, because he's such a traditional artist, and then he mixed him with a crazy conceptual artist, and then there's something new. So, yeah. Just visual.
Yeah, it also looks like kind of like samurai movies too, and like a very, like, I know it's kind of based on different lightings and stuff too, but yeah, there's so much influence going on in that one scene that he packed into it. It's just incredible.
If it's possible, I think we sometimes are unaware or unappreciate just how rich this film is. But I'm hoping that conversations like this help to continue to shed light on this masterpiece, the cinematic masterpiece. My fourth one is Luke reconnecting with us as an audience. It's when he reconnects with Chewbacca. It's when he reconnects with the Falcon, that wonderfully touching scene where he goes into the cockpit and it lights up. And then when he talks with R2-D2 again, and then as Lindsay said earlier, when he sees his sister. Because the first time I saw this, I didn't realize it was a hologram. I didn't realize it was a forced projection. I thought they were together. And it really doesn't even matter now that I know what it is, because it still has the same emotional weight to me. And it's very much like a love letter. When I think, if you're concerned that this is not a good portrayal of Luke, I think this is the most realistic portrayal of Luke that we've ever seen, because he's just so vulnerable. And you just can't tell me that after 30 years, no matter how powerful you are with a green lightsaber, you can't tell me that you're not going to be human, that you're not going to have problems. And as you mentioned before, Din, the way that we go to battle sometimes within ourselves and how that impacts us, it just makes him so rich and so well-rounded and so fascinating. And we get to see that because of how he reconnects with us as an audience and reconnects with the Star Wars world on screen.
Yeah, and I love what you said about how it doesn't lose its emotional resonance. I mean, when I think I saw it the first 4 times in the theater, I think I cried. I teared up at that scene every time.
Oh, yeah.
And you're surprised because, he's a projection, but wow, the emotion. Like, even when he winks at 3PO, he's just so human and so well acted. Oh my God, I think he deserved an Oscar nomination for that.
I really do.
Yeah, I agree.
I really, really do. I was kind of surprised it didn't happen. So, all right. Well, the only downside of this is that we've only got a couple left. But I'm hoping you two have lots of honorable mentions, and we also have our last one. So let's go ahead and take a break. When we come back, we will close out our list of the top 5 things we love about The Last Jedi. This is Coffee with Kenobi.
Greetings. This is Obi-Wan Kenobi, and you're listening to Coffee with Kenobi.
So a big event happened last weekend at the Zare household. I don't know if it's really a big event, but I shaved. I've had my beard for over 2 months, and it was pretty intense. I was really excited about it because I never really let one grow like that. I was very happy with how it looked. I very much had the Sir Alec Guinness thing happening, minus the gray, of course. And but I shaved, and it took a long time because I've been growing that beard for a while, as I said. And fortunately, I had a fresh blade of Harry's razors to take care of business for me. And it really does make a difference. A nice, smooth, clean shave makes a huge difference. And this is the holiday season. And, guys can be hard to shop for, but Harry's is the perfect gift. I know it's something that my wife was really excited that we had. And I'm going to add to my subscription this holiday season because of the really, really cool things that they have. And besides, I don't need another wallet or more socks or anything like that. What I really want is a nice, clean, comfortable shave that is convenient, which is why Harry's makes a perfect gift. They make long-lasting quality products at a super reasonable price, and they have a 4.5 out of 5 star rating on Trustpilot, which is really cool. And when you consider that German-engineered blades are as low as $2 each, you've got a great thing. It's a practical gift that he will actually use, and you can save him money on blade refills. Another nice aspect of this, you can personalize them to make it feel really special. Choose a color that's right for him now with limited edition holiday handles, which I absolutely love, and you can do personal engraving options as well. The gift sets start at just $10, As a special offer for fans of the show, we have partnered with Harry's to give you $5 off any shave set, including our limited edition holiday sets, when you go to harrys.com/CWK Family. Plus, you get free shipping. This offer is for new and returning customers and is only available for the holidays. Each Harry's shaving set comes with an ergonomic weighted handle with an option to engrave, German-engineered 5-blade cartridges that provide a close, comfortable shave, foaming shave gel for a rich lather, a travel cover to protect your blades, and a handsome holiday gift box. And if you just want something for yourself, redeem a Harry's trial offer to experience the quality of shave before committing. Get your holiday shopping done early. Free shipping ends on December 12th, so act now. Go to harrys.com/CWK Family to get a $5 off a shave set while supplies last. That's harrys.com/CWK Family. And while you are doing that holiday shopping, you need to go to our Coffee with Kenobi TeePublic store. We've got an amazing sale going on with $14 t-shirts, $15 long sleeve shirts, $14 kids ones, $20 phone cases, $11 mugs. The list goes on and on. It's a fantastic deal. Right now, this special deal is going on for you between December 9th and December 13th. It's TeePublic site-wide. So you've got an amazing amount of things to choose from, with featuring Corey Club's award-winning Coffee with Kenobi logo, again on t-shirts, hoodies, coffee mugs, phone cases, laptop cases, stickers, bags, all kinds of amazing stuff. You won't even believe the options that we have on there for you. Be sure to go to www.teepublic.com/store/coffee with Kenobi to find out more about it. And it's going to be an amazing deal where you just are not going to want to miss out. I mean, 25% off is a big deal, and there's so much for you to choose from. There have got to be people in your life who love Coffee with Kenobi or are curious about it, or maybe you just want to be a representative of the show and wear the logo, again, that Corey designed. The TeePublic store, the quality is amazing. It's out of this world. I personally can't wait till the Christmas season so I can wear my Christmas with Kenobi green hoodie. It's great. I get compliments on it all the time. So be sure to go to our TeePublic store, which you can find links on our webpage. You can see the banner for our t-shirts and our coffee mugs, and that will take you to where you need to go for some of the coolest coffee mugs, t-shirts, and so much more just for the holiday season and beyond. We are back, and we are on the last one on our list, but as I mentioned before, we have some honorable mentions, and of course we do because there's a lot of them to dive into. I think we could easily do a top 10 here, not even scratch the surface of this film. So Lindsay, what is the last one you have on your list?
Yeah, well, this is kind of going back to something you already brought up, which is the Yoda scene, the whole thing. You kind of talked about the failure aspect of it. For me, just that whole moment where we get to see Yoda again is so emotional for me. We talked about tearing up with Luke. I can't watch this scene and not feel just a swell of emotion. It's just a lot for me. I think it's nostalgia done in the best possible way, where it is bringing back this character that we love, this character that's from the original trilogy, but it's improving upon him. It makes him feel like he should be there. And he's, Yoda drops in to tell kind of the sage things. He's kind of Luke's subconscious in a way, telling him the things he needs to hear. And the things that he says, just every line that he has in this moment is so superb to me. It's my favorite sequence in all of Star Wars. I think it's beautiful. And, we already talked about the failure line. I always think of his line where he says about Rey, we are what they grow beyond, that, that's the greatest thing that there can be. It's just so everything's so perfectly worded. And yeah, this whole scene, you could, stitch quote on a pillow or something. And I would,
and you needed to cry on it when you think about it.
Exactly. I just think it's beautiful. It's my favorite part for sure.
That's a wonderful one to end on. And when he says we are what they grow beyond, it kind of reminded me in kind of a similar vein when in Indiana Jones and the King of the Crystal Skull, when Indiana Jones' Dean says we're at that place where life stops giving us things and starts taking it away.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not the same, but in many ways that it is. It's just that notion of life is so fast and so temporary and so wonderful. And you got to embrace it all because it doesn't last forever.
and it feels a little bit meta also. It's kind of for the fans, which is, this is the next generation story. We are, it's not just for us anymore. So
right. Yeah, there's a lot of meta like that.
Oh yeah, this movie's loaded with stuff like that. But I felt like that one was the most kind of graceful way of enunciating that.
Good. Well said. Speaking of enunciating, that was well said.
And then another way that Johnson is like Lucas is that he has a way of saying those things that are just going to stick with you for the rest of your life. I'm so glad they gave him a trilogy,
Yeah.
Very true. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I can't wait to see what happens with that. What's the last one you have on your list?
Oh, so mine is, I have Broom Boy / Canto Bite. Because it's kind of like, it's hard to say what I like about all of that so much, because I think in true Star Wars form, it is one of those things that's suggesting a lot. Like the whole thing, of Canto Bite. People think it wasn't needed, but to me, it seems to suggest that it's setting up a lot that's needed that we haven't seen yet. Everything about it, like even they find DJ there, and he starts to suggest how the war profiteers are behind both sides. But then when I hear stuff like, and it's shot in such a PT style too, that it makes me think he's in a PT headspace for the themes going on here. And when JJ says episode 9 is going to tie all the saga together, it makes me think maybe the people behind the 1%ers, behind the war profiteers, and the people behind that people and the person behind that person is going to be significant, because we don't know what DJ's talking about. But the question was raised in our mind, what's really going on behind all this? So I just love Canto Bite, everything about it, but especially Broom Boy and the broom. And it's such a hodgepodge too of these sources that we've been talking about, because the 3 kids, they're actually sort of like a little Ron, Harry, and Hermione trio.
Amazing.
And it's just, it makes me laugh that he uses the Force to grab a broom. It's like, is he going to fly away on a Nimbus 2000? And I found that so charming, to bring up another really popular influence in his movie.
Well, in mythology, the number 3 is usually kind of an important sacred number anyway. So that's interesting.
Yes.
You make that observation. My last one is Luke's face-off with Kylo Ren in the First Order, where we have that incredible music from John Williams for that track when he shows up and he's facing all of them. And this is, it's true, I'm having goosebumps talking about this. This is the moment I've been waiting for since Return of the Jedi. Again, the first time I saw it, I'm not going to pretend that, I noticed that he didn't have footprints or blah. I didn't notice any of that. I just knew that Luke was going to face off against the First Order. And then they bombard him, like you mentioned before, with the relation to the elephant from mythology. And then he brushes off his shoulder. That moment, I swear to you, is my favorite moment, not only in Star Wars, but films, period. And I agree. I've been a cinephile my entire life. And I can't even tell you how electric that sequence is for me. It's like watching the original Creed for the first time. That kind of excitement where you're just so fired up because you just know this is it. This is the guy we're waiting for. And then in a beautiful turn of events, when he faces against Kylo Ren, he does not take a single offensive strike. It's the Force is used for knowledge and defense, never attack. And it's just absolutely gorgeous. He's very much playing with Kylo, and Kylo is scared to death for all of his power and how scary he is. He's a bully, and he's facing up against somebody who not only is not afraid of him, but who actually loves him and actually wants him to turn. But he's also not going to make him make that choice because it would be inauthentic. And it's the Gandhi moment. It's the Jesus moment. This is the moment where, and I'm not saying Luke is a savior. He's not a Christ figure, but he is someone who uses love as the way to defeat evil. And I think it's amazing.
Yeah, I love that you say that, because I think that's something that's lost a lot in that moment, is that he's acting, as a mentor, but also as an uncle. This is still his blood and
that's
something
right.
he cares about. And that's that family message is something that I think is really felt in this film, even if it's not spoken explicitly all the time.
Right. It's very powerful. And it's also great because in that moment, Luke has completely forgiven himself. And I would argue that might be one of the hardest things we as a people sometimes have a hard time doing, is forgiving ourselves.
Right.
And Luke does that, which is why he finds, as Ray so beautifully says it later, peace and purpose. That's why. It's right there.
Yeah.
What more do you want? I agree with you. That's my favorite thing in all movies ever.
That's great. It's phenomenal. I never thought I'd find a sequence I love more than when Vader faces off against Luke on The Empire Strikes Back in Cloud City, when he says, "The Force is with you, young Skywalker, but you're not a Jedi yet." I never thought I'd find a moment that eclipsed that, but this does.
Yeah, it does.
Kind of a sister sequence almost, like those two kind of similar things reverberate between both of them.
Good call.
Yeah, and it feels like an actual sequel to that moment. Yeah.
Oh man, you should be a writer. That's great.
Yeah, in my spare time.
Indeed. You know what? Let's go ahead and take one more break, and we will come back and give our honorable mentions, because I've got a bunch of them, and I know you both have got some great thought put into these as well. So we will take our last break and come back and give honorable mentions of the top 5 things we love about The Last Jedi. This is Coffee with Kenobi.
Coffee, tea, or me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. It's Coffee with Kenobi.
As I mentioned at the top of the show, my wife and one of her very best friends in the world went to New York last weekend, courtesy of MEI and Mouse Fan Travel, and they took care of everything. It was amazing. They found the coolest hotel right by Times Square, gave them great suggestions for eating, made the travel arrangements very, very easy so they could just go there, have a great girls shopping weekend, and they had a blast. MEI and Mouse Fan Travel is the way to go with their signature service and their knowledge of everything in the Disney theme parks and beyond. And really, the Disney theme parks, while they are their bread and butter, they can take you anywhere that you want to go. They are amazing. They have so many things to help you plan every detail, and they can share invaluable tips with you. So be sure to check out www.mousefantravel.com today and let them know Coffee with Kenobi sent you. One Nation Coffee is the official brew of Coffee with Kenobi. I start my morning every day with One Nation Coffee because it is the best. You can start your coffee subscription so you never miss out on the best coffee in the galaxy by going to www.onenationcoffee.com today. Plus, enter the code Kenobi10 to set up a coffee subscription and save 10% off your first order. We've got, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I've got, I think, 9 honorable mentions, which is by far the most honorable mentions I've had of any of these films. But for these, we'll just give them blast points, 15, 20 seconds per. We don't want to cover too much on them, but we have to tip our caps to them, though, because they're great. Lindsay, you want to go first?
Yeah.
Your whole list? Yeah.
Oh, you want me to do my whole list, or just...
Yeah. Yeah, just drop them all. Drop some knowledge for us.
Okay, well, I don't have 9. I only have a few.
That's all right.
I could have added more. So my first big one, which kind of did work into my first one, or my main list, but I kind of combined some things. But a big one for me is just Princess Leia, or General Leia, in this movie. I'm a huge Carrie Fisher fan. She is my hero of all time, and I love her. And I was waiting for her to kind of have a moment in the sequel trilogy. And I think, obviously, we could have gotten so much more in the next one, but I do think that this was a beautiful kind of send off for her in her last real live action performance. She's strong. She's not, there's a lot of wisdom in the way that her character works in this movie. And I just think it's a perfect Leia movie, maybe my favorite of all of the movies and how they incorporate Leia. So that's a big one for me. My other ones are all kind of silly, so I hope that's okay.
Of course.
I got all the deep stuff out before. I I'm going to throw one out there for my fellow hetero ladies for a shirtless Kylo, because I think that was a moment where, we don't get a lot of shirtless scenes in Star Wars, and it was kind of great. And I just also remember seeing that with an audience for the first time, where there was a lot of like laughter, but kind of like, oh, okay.
What have we here?
Yeah. Kind of a fun and funny moment. I think it's, there's a lot going on there. I'm also going to throw a bone out for the Porgs, which I think they get kind of unfairly maligned a lot, but I think the Porgs are really fun. I think they're in the movie just enough. They're not too much. But they're fun, kind of like little counter for Chewie. They're funny. They're cute. I just like them. And then my last kind of bigger one is I really love the opening sequence of this movie, particularly kind of how Hux is used in it. I think Hux is great in this movie. I know it's gotten also a little bit of criticism for its humor and whatnot, but I think just everything, the whole opening, like 15 minutes of this movie is just incredible to me. It's kind of got it all. It's funny. It's heartfelt. It's the feeling of like war in these movies is really felt in that opening sequence. I love Poe Dameron in the opening sequence. It's just the first 15 minutes I think are perfect.
That's a great list. No, that's a fantastic list. And you made me think of things I didn't even include. Rats. That's good. It takes a village.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Din, what's your honorable mentions?
Okay, so we're supposed to have, I missed this part where we were supposed to have these, but I was able to just come up with them on the fly. We need 9 of them?
No. You just need whatever. I just wrote 9 because I had a moment. But no, you could have 1, you could have 0, you could have 50.
Yeah, I just had 3, so you're fine.
Yeah.
Okay, here's some quick ones. I love the line, the tender thing with Holdo and Leia. And I don't know why people don't talk about this, but it's kind of cool because after Poe pulls all his stupid macho stuff, and Leia's going away on the little shuttle, Holdo says as Poe's going by on the stretcher, he's a troublemaker. I like that guy. After everything just happened, then Leia said, yeah, me too. And I thought that was just so cool because, like, how are people missing that point that it was, these are like real leaders, these 2 women, and they see the best in Poe, even though he kind of screwed up, he screwed up a lot. And I just thought that was a really there's a lot of peace in that moment that I think people miss. I love Luke's saber over the shoulder. Like, I just love that. Yeah. That's all I wanted. It's all I wanted. I've been going on about Luke tossing his saber, for the last 10 years of my life and how important that is. And then the first thing we see is he throws it over his shoulder in kind of a funny way. Like, it almost was like Mr. Miyagi and how he taught, with that kind of whimsical master kind of thing. So I love the humor there. Porgs on the Falcon.
Yeah.
That made me laugh. Porgs on the Falcon. Porgs with Chewie. Adam Driver's yelling. That's a show that a girlfriend got me to start watching after we had finished the whole Sex and the City series. And then I was like, oh, another show? Isn't it my pick? And then in the first episode, I just fell in love with Adam Driver and his freakouts.
He's so good. This is a little bit of a side off, but I covered that show before it even started. I had like screeners, and I've just known for a long time that he's just this incredible talent, and I'm so happy to see him actually flourishing.
So you would have been so excited too, like, to hear the announcement when it's like, what will he bring? Like,
this is sorry not to go off topic, but one of the best days of like my life I remember is when they did that official cast announcement of like who the stars of the new trilogy were going to be, and it was it was Adam Driver, it was Donald Gleason, it was Oscar Isaac. It was all these people that I loved from all these different projects. And it was just like the most exciting feeling for me, where it was like, oh, these people that are kind of underrated but so talented are going to be in this. So
well cast. But you know, Adam Driver, like, he's thrilling to watch, and he was thrilling in Girls. I'd be like, next episode. I loved all the characters, the girls and the guys.
Yeah.
I guess I also like the creatures. They were gorgeous. The Faviers or the Crystal Foxes. And then little Clone Wars call-outs like the police siren on Canto Bight.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's the same, yeah.
Very true. I hadn't thought about that. Wow, interesting. That's a good list as well. Mine is very random, but this actually, the first one's not random at all. It's Leia's Force moment. I love that moment. I think it's so beautiful, and just the right amount of haunting. Mostly because we know that Carrie Fisher is no longer with us. Because when I first saw it, I thought, oh my God, we're gonna lose her here. This is gonna happen. And then she instinctively uses the Force. I did a CWK Coffee Break, which is a YouTube thing we used to do on our YouTube channel, and I talked about this moment for a while. And basically, it has always been necessary, not okay or acceptable or it makes sense. No, I think it's necessary. She's a daughter of the most powerful Jedi that ever lived, and she's the brother of Luke Skywalker. Of course, the Force, which is transmitted, it surrounds us, penetrates us, binds about galaxy together, midichlorians, however you want to describe it. Of course, she's going to be incredibly Force sensitive and strong. And in the book Leia, Princess of Alderaan by Claudia Gray, Leia has a very similar moment well before she meets Han Solo or anyone in A New Hope, where she's going to be suffocated in a mudslide, and she instinctively uses the Force and gets out, and she can't even explain it. She doesn't even know anything about her brother or her father or anything, but it just happened. So to me, that moment was just, it's crucial. And I think it's beautiful. And John Williams' score in that moment, oh my gosh, how could you not get choked up when you see that? It's great.
Yeah,
the cave sequence, I could talk for an entire show completely top to bottom about that sequence. I think it's masterful. The metacognitive message that Rian Johnson and Mark Hamill and the characters are speaking to us as fans about sometimes throughout this film. Luke and Rey's chemistry, especially in that scene when he says, "Do you feel that? It's the Force," and he's tickling her hand with that feather, was hilarious and also rather poignant. The intro with Paige in the slow motion sequence where she's trying to get to release that button to open the hatch to release the bombs is just, that's great movie making. It's very suspenseful and very much like a white knuckle moment. Great post transformation as a leader through mistakes, through the ultimate passing of the torch because General Leia believes in him, and she also is not going to allow him to be less than his best, and she holds him accountable, and I love that. Rose's quote, you talked about this earlier, that's not how we're going to win. This is how we're going to win, not fighting what we hate, but saving what we love. I think that's great, and I think about that one quite a bit as well. The last two I have are porgs. I think they're adorable. I thought they were great from day one. I'm still proud that our show, when Last Jedi came out, set a record for using the word porg the most times in a podcast. Amazing. It was porgerific. And then Rian Johnson and what he did with his film, with his franchise, and I talked about earlier, but how he took this and gave it even more luster than it ever had before. And I think that's saying something. And
also has had an amazing attitude about everything. That's kind of
really has.
He's just proven to be a really great guy.
Fearless.
Yeah.
Fearless. Yeah. Great stuff. It was so wonderful having the two of you on. Undoubtedly, people are going to want to talk to you, ask you questions, and see all the great things you're doing out there. Lindsey, let's start with you. Where can people reach out to you if they want to ask you a question or just say hello?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Lindsey Romain, Lindsey with an E, Romain without an E at the end, Romain. And then you can also follow me. I'm a staff writer for Nerdist. I kind of write elsewhere as well, but I post everything on Twitter. So, yeah.
Awesome. And Din, what about you?
So I'm most active on the F105 site. So you can go to f105music.com. And then from there, head to our Instagram or Twitter or Facebook, SoundCloud. I'm on those sites every day, talking with people and posting cool stuff. So those handles for all the sites are all at F105 Music.
Fantastic. Let's go ahead and take our last break and come back and close out the show. This is Coffee with Kenobi.
Listening to Coffee with Kenobi, you are the podcast you're looking for. This is...
Before we get to email, I want to thank our CWK sponsor, TeePublic, One Nation Coffee, Harry's Razors, and Mouse Fan Travel. Please support them the way they support our podcast. And remember to listen to new and archive shows of Coffee with Kenobi wherever you listen to podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Podcast Addict, Stitcher, Spreaker, Overcast, Blog Talk Radio, Player FM, or our website, www.coffeewithkenobi.com. And if you listen to the show through iTunes, please leave us a review. We are also on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Pinterest, and Tumblr, and we'd love for you to check us out there. Also, be sure to listen to our CWK family of shows, including Legends Library, Rebels Reactions, Comics with Kenobi, and Lattes with Leia. Please leave a review for each of their shows as well, and be sure to subscribe to each of them individually, as they all have their own feeds now. That's going to do it for show number 154 of Coffee with Kenobi. A huge thank you to our guests on today's show, which would be Lindsey Romain and Din, as they joined us to talk about the top 5 things we love about The Last Jedi. I have had so much fun going over these movies with each and every one of you. And it's a bit bittersweet because while we're almost done with this, which ended up taking a little bit longer than I expected, but that's good because you always want to pour into these things. And it helps me see how much I love and appreciate these films. And hearing my guest hosts talk with me about these helps me see things in a new way, as does each of your feedback, so continue to keep them coming. Next week, of course, we're going to close out this series for what we have so far in Star Wars film lore with Solo, A Star Wars Story. And of course, if you're a fan of Coffee with Kenobi, you can probably guess at least who one of my co-hosts is going to be to talk about Solo, A Star Wars Story. In addition to the places I just mentioned for Coffee with Kenobi, you can find me twice a month on the podcast looking at Lucasfilm, part of the Jim Hill Media and Podcast Network, and I hope to record one with Jim here very soon. I think you can look for that really, really soon, actually. You can also find me on Twitter at Mr. Zer, MRZEHR, and you can find my writing on CWK's website, as well as StarWars.com, where I'm an official blogger there, and at IGN. Thanks again for joining us, and don't forget to check out www.patreon.com/coffeewithkenobi to help support this show, as well as get access to podcasts not heard anywhere else. And the podcast I'm talking about is our CWK Pour-Over. There are also t-shirts, coffee mugs, and so much more. Remember to go to our TeePublic store for all these great Coffee with Kenobi t-shirts, coffee mugs, and the things I mentioned that you can get on Patreon. You can also just go right to our TeePublic store and find them for purchase there. There are all kinds of great sales, as you heard earlier in the show. Have an awesome week, everybody, and I will see you next time. This is the podcast you're looking for.
This podcast is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company or Lucasfilm Limited. It is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com. Star Wars, all names, sounds, and any other Star Wars-related items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Disney and their respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of Coffee with Kenobi unless otherwise indicated.
This is the podcast you're looking for.
There's no one here. Move along. Move along.